the last few months, JR Law Group has educated us through the ins and outs of divorce. And today, we wrap up our Family Law Friday series by learning what to do if your ex doesn't follow your decree. We have Jacqueline Robertson, family law attorney, to walk us through. You get a divorce, but then you have the decree, but that other person isn't following the rules.
Yes, so that is a problem that does come up. And so basically, first of all, you want to know what your decree says. And my soapbox is always get it right the first time, because that having a clear, concise decree that clearly outlines what you need to do is going to be that much easier to enforce. So know what's required, and then from there, if things start to slip, then you have a clear thing to fall back on, a clear document.
It can be so overwhelming because you go through the process and you think, okay, we've already discussed it, but then now you're going through what happens when someone's not following the decree.
Yes, and so the biggest issues, the biggest problems tend to be, if one party's not following the parent time schedule or making the required payments. Usually it relates to the custody or the money side of things.
Those are usually the two big
ones.
Yes,
those are the ones that are critical. And so even on the custody schedule, so the parties can always otherwise agree, but then if you are going along, especially in high conflict, usually you are following the decree, and that's where if they don't follow it, then you want to act quickly to nip it in the bud. Basically, you communicate with them. If that doesn't resolve it, then you want to make sure you're documenting it, and with specific instances, even reach out to your attorney, because if you let it slip and slide and you're, a lot of months into the violations, then it just becomes really murky to try to enforce it later.
So when you say document and say one rule or it was drop off or whatever it was one time, you're saying document it then and then act on it? Yeah,
well, generally. It's like definitely if you see something like a payment's missed or you're deprived of a holiday, those are kind of big deals.
So don't wait on it.
Yep, and document it, and then, see what happens, communicate, but you're going to know pretty quickly if this is a problem. And at that point, that's when you should deal with it, and that, by reaching out to your attorney.
So when it is a chronic problem, you want an attorney to kind of say, I'm going to streamline this process.
Well, that's the whole thing. I mean, but by virtue of acting quickly, it does streamline the whole process. So you reach out to your attorney. Hopefully, you can fall back on the one you had your divorce with. And I know even at our firm, we've tried to create a simple process for our clients to go forward in enforcing that with the court. And the quicker you act, the more specific the instances, the less convoluted it is, and you can have an effective means of getting the relief you need and nipping the problems in the bud.
Does that always mean that you're going to court?
No, and that's the whole thing. This is civil contempt. So a lot of times, just even if you've communicated and it hasn't worked, even if your attorney reaches out to them or their attorney, that can cure the problem, which is the whole point of getting contempt. But if ultimately the problem persists, high conflict it sometimes can, that's where your attorney comes in. And the beautiful thing is this is the one area where if it is simple and streamlined, the court will look at that and award attorney's fees to the other party for the cost you had to incur. A lot of times even your decree will require that or have that provision.
And you say the last tip is keep your hands clean.
Yes.
I mean, that means you got to follow the rules too, because when you say murky, it gets murky when no one is following the rules.
Exactly. So that's the whole thing. It's like be clear, document up front, but also make sure your own hands are clean, because that also muddies the waters and it becomes a he said, she said, back and forth, expensive process.
And then you're talking about court.
Exactly. And nobody gets any real help. So just make sure you know the decree, going back to what I first said, and then make sure you're doing what you need to do. Always communicate, but ultimately there are ways that you can quickly and efficiently enforce your decree, and hopefully that will resolve problems going forward.
Jacqueline Robertson, I know you've helped a lot of couples, a lot of people out there who may be struggling. You are someone who has given us great advice in the last few months. JR Law Group, the numbers, they're on your screen. They're on Instagram. They're also on the website, jrlawgroup.com. We're going to have a link on our website, abc4.com/GTU. All right, we are kicking up this weekend on a sweet note, coconut almond pie, Brian.
And still ahead, should you use that lipstick again or buy a new one? See how long your favorite makeup actually lasts. Then buckle up. We're live at the Utah International Auto Expo, checking out these and the hottest cars for 2020.